In theory, they have not played in 2023 yet. We're clearly about to set up the standard for what 2023 is going to look like.
You know, that makes sense because it almost feels like, obviously, GunGFuBanDa, sometimes he plays and sometimes he doesn't, right? Like, he's not been full-time in a long time, if he ever was. Just sometimes he comes home after work and he bops some nerds on the ladder, and sometimes he doesn't do it as frequently. So maybe those results just kind of line up with his practice schedule. Anyways, in the top right, our blue pro display here is going to be Team Liquid's MaNa.
And down here in the bottom left-hand side of the map, we have the red Protoss player. He is GunGFuBanDa.
Yes, he is entering this PvP. A best of 3, of course, and yeah, just fun to see what goes on. Like I said, to me, this was one which, in the initial setup and everything, I really kind of looked at it. I was like, oh, how did we get here? Because, you know, GunGFu and MaNa being 1-1 to me, at this point, not super surprising. But I didn't expect MaNa to lose to Hellraiser, right? Like, to me, that was a bit of a shock. And then he beat King Cobra very convincingly. And then, when you look at GunGFuBanDa, he lost to Goblin, which is fair enough. But then he beat Bly, also fair enough. But that was a 2-1 against Bly, and I wouldn't say Bly is in
That was a wild series, by the way.
Yeah, exactly, right? So, to me, it's like, you know, to me, GunGFu in seasons gone by would have actually probably beat Goblin and likely beats Bly comfortably. So, I just haven't felt as though GunGFu has been quite as good as recently. So, I guess what I'm saying is why am I saying everything twice? I guess what I'm saying is that I favor MaNa in the series.
Yeah, I think I have a similar vibe overall, where I think right now, if I just do, like, you know, the kind of close your eyes gut check, who do you feel like is typically associated with like having a higher performance right now, I would actually say MaNa as well. MaNa in my mind is kind of the player that I expect to do a little bit better. I do feel like it's kind of an interesting spot. I know that this has been going on for a while. It's not like this all just started up in the past, I want to say, like month or a couple of months or something. But MaNa has also been in an interesting spot career-wise. He's been making his transition as like being basically a Team Liquid manager for the StarCraft 2 team. So he's managing all the TL players for StarCraft. He's also been really doubling down on a lot of the content creation and YouTube and stuff, as well as doing all the, you know, the pro player gameplay stuff. So I do feel like this is just, it's a really hard match to predict. In fact, I'm actually at the point where I'm not even here to like make a prediction on who I think is going to win. I just feel like it's okay for me to say, I think this is really even. And we just get to enjoy and see what happens. Because you know what? It's sometimes fun to just not even know or have some expectation of what should happen.
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, with it being PvP as well, I feel like the doors are also wide open because PvP, you know, is not just a matchup of randomness, but it is a matchup which definitely I feel like lowers the kind of skill gap between players a little bit, at least, because there is a little bit more kind of craziness that can happen. There's a lot of viable one-base builds that can take away a lot of weaknesses of certain players, right? So, yeah, you know, the matchup itself kind of, you know, speaks for being fun. And we're kind of just completely mirrored here. Timing's a bit different, but, you know, both expanding, both a Twilight Council to start off this game.
Yeah, and exactly to the point you were talking about how there are sometimes chaotic things that can just go really, really wrong, or maybe build order choices or slight deviations and stuff that you can make. Granted, there is a Forge coming out over here for MaNa that GunGFuBanDa is not quite going for just yet. You saying that is mirrored, and the fact that the openings for both these players have been like the 3 Stalkers and a Sentry, hallucinate Phoenix Scouts across the map and everything. They're pretty in the know about, for the most part, what's going on. The only thing I'm not positive about is if GunGFuBanDa has seen the Forge, because I think that came down right as the hallucinate Phoenix expired and everything. But outside of that, these players are not going to get wildly caught off guard by anything.
GunGFu didn't see the Twilight, but I think he saw the Stalker count to let him know it is a Twilight. So not like immediately worried or anything, and he's not either, because he's not started anything in particular. Like, he's not started a Robo thing against DTs as well, so I think he's pretty happy. But yeah, he does not get a Forge, and in this mirrored situation, that's just something MaNa gets away with. It's not expensive enough to put MaNa in like a deadly, oh my god, I'm in trouble position if GunGFu attacks. Just going to give him that one, you know, +1 lead, and a upgrade lead actually goes a long way in this matchup. MaNa will cave first in terms of being the first player to build a Robo, while the Robo comes up on the side of GunGFu as well.
Yeah, and kind of interesting, I've just been staring at the gas count for GunGFuBanDa, and I was kind of like, okay, mostly it's about the gas investment into the +1 weapons and stuff, not just like, you know, 150 resources and stuff for the Forge and 100 for the actual upgrade and everything. GunGFuBanDa has actually been hovering. He hasn't dropped below 200 gas for basically like this entire time since the +1 weapons got started there for MaNa. So I do feel like, to a degree, outside of like a little bit of the mineral cost, MaNa really has not been losing out on a whole lot over there. There's the forge finally being planted out there for GunGFuBanDa, but it's going to be kind of wild. MaNa's just going to be ahead basically an entire upgrade for a lot of this game.
And that does come into play on Stalker versus Stalker fights, for example. Obviously means a bit less if we end up teching toward Disruptors eventually, but yeah, there's definitely going to be moments where that's effective, and we do see there the Guardian Shield for a little while helps MaNa out also, makes the Stalkers that bit tanky, and he didn't have to focus down the sentry as kind of quickly as maybe GunGfu would have done, so yeah, a couple of probes going down, by the way, too. Adepts on the other side, and I love that. They're shading out, but honestly, there's opportunity just to kill a bunch of workers in the main. Let's see what they do. They're going to shade out and just take the opportunity to fight again later.
Yeah, accidentally microing the shot there and ends up hitting the Stalker instead of the probe, so had an opportunity to kill one more worker there, maybe, but still being able to find a little bit of damage and just drawing all the Stalkers back, I think, in and of itself is going to be a bit of a W there for MaNa, especially if he keeps those Adepts alive, as doesn't look like the Stalkers are going to try and find them and chase them down.
No battery. And actually, if the Adepts tank a little bit for these Stalkers, that would be great. Means the Stalkers of MaNa get a chance to just deal damage without taking shots themselves. Now probes start to pull, and GunGFu's already lower on the probe count, so this is not exactly fun for him. He will blink forward to take advantage towards the end. MaNa did not have a reinforcement point nearby. MaNa turning around, trying to hit down some lower HP Stalkers, but he's losing some of his lower HP ones himself. I mean, a good trade, I'd say, overall for MaNa, because he's up in workers, he's killed a few more, and the armies are still similar enough, so yeah, just great for MaNa because he's basically trading out somewhat equally while being ahead on eco, and that should just lead to bigger things for him. And you already see just a robo-bay from GunGfu, and I don't blame him if he starts leaning on that, those tech units, because he definitely is behind that little bit that he might need the tech unit advantage to have a chance to keep on fighting.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, even just the units lost tab really does tell the tale of just GunGFuBanDa's lost like a couple more Stalkers. Yeah, he lost maybe like one less sentry, but then losing the 10 probes, losing the shield battery and everything, he is going to be in a little bit of a rougher spot. And I think it is definitely already reflected in the game. Not even to mention the fact that +2 weapons is a really big upgrade that a lot of people like to talk about in PvP, is having a big difference in the damage points for your Stalker versus Stalker battles and stuff. So MaNa, he may actually decide to get aggressive yet again as +2 weapons finishes on up. I wouldn't even hate if he did decide to do light pressure with the Stalkers, but then gets ready to go for a bigger attack with charge finishing on up. But I think you mentioned the warp or the reinforcement point. He still doesn't really have a reinforcement point right now.
Yeah, no prism, no way to no nearby pylon. That's the one thing that I think would let him down here potentially, because it is important, right? Because at the end of the day, if your opponent comes in like 4 Stalkers down, but they can warp in 6 Stalkers during the fight, well, that is the difference, right? You're not maintaining that lead as the fight goes on. So, yeah, MaNa just going to back it up once again. There is the prism on the way, and I think you're right. He's definitely going to do something with the fact he's got a +2 upgrade lead, and he's just going to have a lot of gateway units. It can work, but you've got to be careful about the disruptors. You've got to try and knock 1 or 2 of those down as they're firing. Maybe you can take 1 disruptor shot, but much more than that, it's going to become really rough for you. Obviously, a big part of it is the fact that Zealots are going to be kind of uncontested here. Disruptors don't hit Zealots well. A lot of the times it would cause friendly fire, so I think the Zealots are going to be a big part for MaNa as well. I expect him to get some of those up as the Warp Prism comes across the map.
Yeah, disruptor shot number 1 is going to get fired on off, but GunGFuBanDa is still bleeding off a lot of Stalkers in the process, so MaNa's still finding a good bit of damage over here. There is that warp in. A lot of Stalkers, actually. It kind of makes sense, especially with the army composition that he's going up against, but it is kind of interesting because he did try and time all this out with charge finishing up. +2 weapons has been done for a little bit. It's about charge.
He might just feel good enough on his numbers that he can just go straight into the disruptors. I actually wouldn't have super hated if he just blinked on top of them. I mean, I get there's a sentry there with Guardian Shield and you're then giving yourself the micro disadvantage, but it felt like that was maybe the chance. Obviously, the biggest fear is that there's a disruptor a bit further off from the pack, and then that one fires and you don't have anything to do but to split away from it. As he comes in here now, there's one disruptor that's still off cooldown. We finally get a clip. He's been pretty good, MaNa, at avoiding disruptor shots up until now. That wasn't obviously a big one, but so has to be a little careful. Army supply in his favor, work count in his favor, but he's got work to do. And now he's going to jump on the disruptor. He's going to get 1, 2, 3, and he's still got blink available. And again, I feel like that was a moment where he could have maybe blinked forward instead of out.
Yeah, I guess it's going back exactly what you were saying before. He doesn't know if there's another one about to come, but I'm totally with you that seeing that the next disruptor was a little bit of a ways off, there's definitely an opportunity for that. But even just having reset the disruptor count, I don't hate MaNa's position all that much. His fourth base also has just been up and mining for a good bit, whereas GunGFuBanDa is basically just kind of establishing his now. So MaNa's got the economy to work with. He's going to have another upgrade lead yet again, because they did get evened up for a little bit with 2-2, but +3 weapons about to finish up during this fight. He's keeping that disruptor count low. I'm liking everything that MaNa's doing so far.
Yeah, he's actually on a 5th base versus the 4th of his opponent, and this is, I was actually about to say, I'd love to see him just warp some Zealots down the other side of the map, because a lot of the attention is over here, and he's got the supply and the money to do this, and GunGFu doesn't have the supply to deal with it, and MaNa's just getting further and further ahead. Now we're ahead by 60 supply. The 4th base dies, we just mentioned. MaNa's on a 5th base as well, and I think we might be seeing the final moments of this game as MaNa backs up one more time, still playing this safely, but I really feel as though GunGFu is on the verge of defeat, because he just can't afford to build what he needs to stay competitive anymore.
Yeah, he doesn't really have the tools available. The only tool I would say he has available are the disruptors, and he has not been able to find massive disruptor connections. At this point, MaNa is outnumbering him so heavily in terms of army supply with 36 to 23 stalkers, 12 zealots to 5, that I think GunGFuBanDa effectively needs like 3 massive disruptor hits just to even up the army supply overall, and then he needs to be able to do some big counterattack, because he doesn't have the economy he can fall back on either. I love the flanking setup over here from MaNa. This is so great.
Yeah, GunGFu sees it coming. MaNa starts to split away, as obviously those disruptors are going to cause issues. Oh, he did have the blink back, but the disruptor kept moving forwards. It was a good guess of where those Stalkers were going to end up. It did land properly. However, the flank might just be a little bit too much anyways, because now as every single disruptor goes down, the Stalker count's still in MaNa's favor. The one thing keeping GunGFu going has been his static defense, but this is again a case of, hey, you've reset the disruptor count, and you know what happens from here, Ravi?
Well,
you
DTs.
just build more units and you go. Although, yeah, the DTs are putting in some work, and that's definitely one way GunGFu gets back into this game. If DT play can be very effective, MaNa does have observers on the map. He does have one nearby, so he should be kind of fine with this. And he's actually just turning around to fight it. Observer was just out of range. GG from GunGFu, and MaNa does take a 1-0 lead. Just, yeah, very solid play. He was getting further ahead every single time. Not really doing anything too crazy. Just very comfortable from MaNa from start to finish, honestly.
Yeah, I feel like we can kind of clearly point at like just the early game little skirmishes and stuff where it was little things like getting +1 weapons faster and just staying ahead on the upgrades a little bit. And then all those little stalker trades just go a little bit better. Sometimes it's a bit of the micro also being involved and who's taking the edge or who's like losing out a bit. But MaNa just finding little opportunities there. And it wasn't that there was like some big massive thing or massive play that MaNa did and it's just, oh man, he's leagues ahead now. It's just consistently finding these slightly better trades, finding these little openings there to pick off, 5-6 workers or something here or there. MaNa just did a great job. It's honestly really a confidence building kind of play where you don't just win because you got lucky with like a big Widowmine connection or a big disruptor hit. It was, yeah, I just played really well throughout that entire game and gradually picked up lead after lead after lead.
I hate it for GunGFuBanDa, because like to me this is
Yeah.
like worst case scenario. Like, did you do anything wrong? Nah. Was your opponent just straight up better than you? Yeah, kind of. Right? Like,
Yeah.
you did very similar things, and he was just leagues ahead. And it wasn't just the Forge, right? It was like, okay, the couple of Adepts got in, they did some damage, but like, it was just lots of little things, and that's the hardest to kind of patch up ahead of a game too, right? Like, if it was like, oh, my build really sucked, it really wasn't good against him, or man, I really messed up this one fight, it's like, okay, well, we fix that in the next game. Adapting to all the little things from one game to the next, that's very difficult, especially as it's going to play a bit differently too, because it's a gate map with a ramp. So low ground pylons in the bottom right, our Team Liquid Protoss is MaNa.
And up here in the top left-hand side of the map, our red Protoss player, he is GunGFuBanDa. Yeah, I'm 150% with you on all of that. I do think, in a sense, it is even though it is not necessarily something that dramatically changes the build orders and the way that the matchup works, to have one of these maps where you have the low ground expansions and everything. I do think any little shift up from how that last game went, even just changing the feel of how things opened up, I think it's probably going to be nice for GunGFuBanDa. Just making sure that this doesn't feel like it's kind of a repeat situation of last game, because again, like it's really tough to make mid-series adjustments on a very standard looking game where there weren't any major mistakes that happened.
Yeah, I really want to see, as MaNa, by the way, 2 gates, something he does all the time with this low ground setup. He just goes 2 gates, and it's actually kind of frustrating because he can pressure off this. And there becomes a point where it's like, if he walls off, you don't know if he's actually building a Nexus or going all in, right? So it can be a little bit awkward to deal with in that regard as this progresses through. So yeah, kind of intriguing. Cybercore on both sides of the map, and Probes just continue to chase each other around and get some nibbles off as well. As this really does feel quite exciting to see what MaNa's going to get up to here. I always feel like this build is, you know, definitely got that factor where it can just be very exciting and unique and just kind of out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's like you said, I think frustrating is a good word to use, because normally you just kind of get to do the PvP. We do the charade of like, yes, I have to go for the pylon block, and maybe if I really want to be annoying, I go for the pylon block into Cybercore block or something, and I get up the Zealot, and then we both just kind of move along with our lives and do everything normally. But the fact that GunGFuBanDa is actually able to get the Nexus down a good bit earlier on before the probe is cleaned up on the other side of the map is nice, because, well, GunGFuBanDa keeps his probe alive for a while. But this goes back to what you were saying, Wardy. Is MaNa actually going to go for the Nexus? Even if we can see that probe is hanging around over there and is likely going to throw it down at some point. No, Twilight Council comes down first. But this, yeah, I mean, this leads perfectly into what you were talking about. Is the probe actually going to scout that out?
No. That's actually kind of cool, right? Because to me, this Twilight Council is like, it's quite brave to put it down because the probe could have seen it. But if you're GunGFu, you're probably thinking, what didn't I, what wasn't I allowed to see here? The Nexus, right? So he's probably taking the Nexus. Whereas in reality, it was tech placed kind of in his face, but not quite. So I wonder if that was like sort of intentional from MaNa to just kind of lure GunGFu into thinking, man, if nothing else is going on in this main, there must be a Nexus then, so I'm going to assume that, and then maybe he's not quite prepped for this. And I mean, the defense is going to be tough. You can play in a Blink Stalker setup from MaNa, 3rd gateway coming down, heavy pressure. The Oracle has to do some amount of damage and keep some units of MaNa at home. If all the units of MaNa get to come across and the Oracle hasn't done anything, you're just going to get overwhelmed as GunGFu, so that's going to be a very important part of this game.
Yeah, it's important to note that MaNa saw the Stargate for GunGFuBanDa, and he's actually reactively just building a shield battery in his mineral line because he knows he's going to be getting aggressive on the other side of the map. And GunGFuBanDa, I do like that he respected the potential that there could be some aggression. He did make sure he did not skip out on that shield battery at the natural, which maybe if there was a Nexus, like, you feel a little bit less concerned about that. But I mean, is GunGFuBanDa going to be able to get a lot done with the shield battery in the mineral line for MaNa? Probably not. Can he maybe come back in with a second Oracle? That I could maybe see, and being effective.
He's building a Void Ray, so he is realizing defensively that this is a one-base setup and that MaNa is being aggressive, which is very good to see, because I was about to say, man, like, he didn't even get further scouting as he moved on in here. Like, he didn't see the Twilight. He just saw the 3rd gateway. I think he knew before then to get the Void Ray started at the time he did. Probe walks in now, he gets absolute confirmation. Void Ray is good because it's a tanky unit. The problem is, if there's enough Stalkers, it can one-shot through the batteries. And that might just be where MaNa gets to very soon here. He is sending all of his units across the map. He's not going to care if there's a second Oracle. He's just going to say, cool, do your damage. I'm going to have a lot of Stalkers to win the game with on the other side.
Yeah. I love the addition of the stasis trap over there for GunGFuBanDa, because it's important to note that MaNa does not have any high ground units. In fact, he may, if he suspects that the Oracle came back home and threw down a stasis trap, even send in the Adept or even try the Probe to just set off the stasis really quickly. But he doesn't have a way of getting... Oh my god, he's gonna get a high ground vision with the Adept. This is actually so sick.
Oh, it was almost perfect because he almost set off the stasis with the Adept, only it did catch 2 Stalkers. He loses a lot of Stalkers quite quickly anyway, though, and it's just not quite enough, is it? GunGFu realized what was going on very quickly, and the other Stalkers on the low ground get hit by a stasis as well, so they're not causing trouble or damage at the same time. And yeah, this Void Ray is just not going to go down. Honestly, the couple Stalkers getting caught in a stasis really made a bit of a difference, because that extra bit of DPS probably would have absolutely been this second Void Ray killed, and the first one would have died much sooner. It really is just that fine line. MaNa had an idea. I think he just realized his opponent was very well set up, so he had to go for the jump in the main, but GunGFu obviously realized that's his only weak point as well, so moving there immediately was perfect from him.
150%. I mean, just put it into context. We had about 8 Stalkers go down during all of that, and there were 6 Stalkers in stasis. Almost half of the Stalkers ended up in stasis, whether it be from the main base blink or the ones that we saw over the natural. So that made a massive difference. That was almost the half the firepower of MaNa's army. Imagine if he had the full firepower and he was able to actually kill those void rays nice and early on after the blink up into the main base. If he was able to then snipe off stalkers or snipe off a pylon or shield batteries and everything. This is such a tough spot now for MaNa. I think he's doing his best to try and see if he can make anything happen, but we both know that this is an all-in. He does not have a nexus to fall back to. He hasn't found any real worker damage or anything. And it was interesting for GunGFuBanDa to try and wall himself off from his own main base there.
Yeah, just trying to, I guess, block the vision coming up or so. It's definitely a fun one, like you say, as Stalker's just going to continue up from MaNa. I mean, the problem is army supplies are even, and you're playing against someone who's got a good defensive setup. It should, in theory, be not very possible. He doesn't have the Stalkers to one-shot either, so you don't get through that Void Ray quickly enough. You got to be one-shotting those Void Rays, otherwise it just takes too long. You take too much damage in the process, and, well, as you can see, MaNa's army supply absolutely plummets. GunGFu's got a Robo. He can start to build up the Immortal. That's huge for him because an Immortal is amazing in this situation. Super tanky, deals great damage to Stalkers. Very difficult to get rid of. And yeah, this game is absolutely done for. This is going to be 1-1. We're going to be tied up in this best of 3.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be very tough. Ever since the whole stasis trap incident, honestly, at that point, I wouldn't have even minded if MaNa had basically seen that and said, that really that really sucks. At that point, it's really tough to make anything happen. I wouldn't have even minded if at that point he said, yeah, Dark Shrine, I have a Twilight Council. Yeah. Maybe I can just keep him occupied with the stalkers I have and then bait out more Void Rays and things. The Oracle, maybe I eventually get a pick off on it because he decides to get aggressive like that. And then there's no detection, and that's how you turn things around. But at this point, yeah, doing anything like that would just, it'd take way, way too long. So MaNa is going to try and do his best to tech up into something else. Man, it's tough because you don't even have a Robo, so you can't even like say, let me go for Miracle Play Disruptors or something, because it's just so far out.
He has nothing, man. Like he's in so much trouble. Down 16 workers as well. I mean, this is all about GunGFu, who does drop a stasis to catch just a few probes in the main, but forces MaNa to pull away from mining for a few moments as well, so it all adds up. That's obviously part of the problem, right? It's all adding up here throughout, and really getting to this stage where, I mean, we know that this game's kind of over for MaNa. He needs units that get him back into the game, whether that is disruptors or DTs, but he doesn't have a setup into either of them. Even if you start building the Dark Shrine right now, that is so late. By the time the Dark Shrine's done, Lincoln +1's on the map for GunGFu. He has a ton more gateways, and he's probably killing you. And he probably has an Observer, because he's had a Robo for an eternity already as well, so at this point, DTs are even too much to kind of really expect to bring you back into it. I mean, yeah, it's just not a good place. I wouldn't even be half surprised if MaNa just kind of left when this hallucination scouted so much. Obviously, it's an important match. He's going to try, but yeah, when he sees that, he knows he's super behind. Like, MaNa's very aware of the situation, and this is a very impossible position to play out of, quite frankly.
I think MaNa's big play here is he's just going to try and force field the army in half. Like, as a Hail Mary, maybe he doesn't see this coming. Unfortunately for MaNa, he's not aware, I think, that there is an observer sitting directly over his army. Maybe he's seen it, but at this point, this is kind of, I think, the one little thing that he's come up with of, okay, I need to make some kind of miracle play to bring myself back in this game somehow, some way. If I force field just the right amount of units at the bottom of the ramp as he tries to come down, maybe with the most amazing concave ever, great blink stalker micro, the repeated force fields, guardian shield, something can happen. But GunGFuBanDa knows about all this. MaNa even sees that, yes, the army just got elevated down. I'm not going to be surprised if MaNa, he just goes for it and just says, all right, this is the final little hurrah, the final little push in over here.
Well, it kills the Prism. If he killed that before the Immortal got out, I would have loved it. But, yeah, I mean, obviously it just ain't pretty. You're blinking into your opponent's super batteries without really the intention to kill them, just to try and get away from part of his army. This is really not going to work. We knew that. It was just MaNa trying every option he had. And GunGFuBanDa does give us a 1-1 scoreline. So we're going to Game 3 for the first time today. And we're going to see a full series of the PvP. I'm down for that. Like I said, coming into this, I kind of favored MaNa a bit, but... And, Game 1 showed us that, but Game 2 tried to make it a bit funky, and GunGFu showed he's a very solid player as well, and he's very capable of holding the weird things in PvP if that's what is required of him. So, with that said, we head into a Game 3 on Grezvan, and we'll see what these two will get up to. One player's going to go 2-1, the other 1-2. It's such a massive difference, such a huge swing between those two positions in these groups. I
think especially for these players, because I will say... and this is not, like, again, not a shot at MaNa or GunGFuBanDa, but like they are not the ones that you look at the list of and like a Rainer or a MaxPax or Skillus or Hero Marine or something, or a Clem, even I would say to a degree like Lambo and stuff. Those are the players that I think you look at in this group and you say, ah, yes, these are the players that we kind of expect like should make it out of the group. And even if they lose in their like 1-1 match, like say, you know, Clem, he ended up 1-1. If somehow he ends up losing to Hellraiser or something over there, you still kind of expect that things will go well, or even going 2-1 and stuff. I think that those are the players. We're going into a round 4. You think like, okay, but surely they'll still do okay after that. MaNa and I feel like GunGFuBanDa to a degree as well. Both of these players, I think that this win is going to be really important for them. Like having the extra life, having the extra opportunity there where you're not just going to be 1 series away from elimination is going to make a massive difference for them.
Yeah, no, I'm absolutely with you. They're just the sort of players that need every single series they can grab. There's not really much room for mistakes. In the top left, Blue Protoss from Team Liquid. MaNa.
Down here on the bottom right-hand side of the map, we have our red Protoss player. He is GunGFuBanDa. Thank you for saying what I was trying to say much more eloquently as I stared at the group standings and tried to pull out all the names and stuff. But yeah, it's just every little edge is going to make a big difference with these two players because I think they are on the cusp of being the players who can make it to the playoffs. But yeah, it's gonna be still something in the works, and this series, this game is gonna be deciding a lot of that.
Yeah, this is honestly like each of these matches in Swiss round 3 has such a big talking point for the tournament because a lot of the guys that are 1-1 are in this kind of position where they're not favorites for playoffs and they're not favorites necessarily to go out. They are the middle, they're the competitors, right? They're the players we expect to scrap it out in the middle of the group. And so, yeah, you've got your stories of the players advancing, you've got your stories of your eliminations, but yeah, each of these matches in the middle of the pack right now really sets the tone for what's going to happen later down the line, sets the tone for what to expect, and just takes some of the pressure off as well, which can go a long way because, as silly as it sounds, there's a lot of players who I feel like I'd favor to get through if they make it to 2-1, but if they make it to 2-2, maybe not, because at 2-1 you can have a bit less pressure, right? Because, yeah, it's important, but it's not your only chance. There are some players when it comes down to like 2-2 and it's like the last chance, the pressure gets them sometimes. So yeah, everything important right now. And this from GunGfu is going to be the switch up. He's keeping his probe next to this pylon and it's proxy time from him.
Yep. With this location, I mean, it's pretty far away if it was going to be like a Robo or something. So I'm imagining something like a Stargate, but we'll see. Maybe it's something else for now. MaNa is going to be going for his own semi-proxy. It's going to be the Stargate. Oh, Robo. It is going to be a Robo. This is a really far away Robo.
It is far away. Maybe it doesn't matter so much if you just get the Prism. MaNa is going to see the probe coming. That's an amazing move from MaNa. Is he going to go the right? Oh, he's right on top of it. He's going to see it so quickly. What amazing information for MaNa to be working with. He is fully aware of what his opponent is doing. And this is a fantastic start for MaNa, scouting this out immediately. And yeah, that is going to be really, really tough for GunGFuBanDa because his entire plan is a little bit, you know, kind of scrapped right now. I mean, it's known about, it's figured out. He doesn't know that MaNa's hiding a Stargate. We'll see what MaNa does with that. I mean, it might be a bit awkward in some scenarios that MaNa's Stargate is out of the way. But I don't think it matters that much. Like I say, he's going to have plenty of time to prepare his defenses and to make sure he's good against this Robo attack. Yep.
Already starting up a shield battery on the high ground of his main base. Can try and get up some of the defenses over there. He also sends his Adepts across the map. Are the Adepts going to run into the Stalkers? No, they barely actually managed to bypass the Stalkers over at the natural. There is a full wall in coming on over here. But remember, there's not really a plan to bring those Stalkers back. GunGFuBanDa wants to send those Stalkers across the map. So even just keeping the Adepts here is going to be very annoying.
Yeah, GunGfu starts the battery, by the way. It's not going to be on time to stop this Oracle, I don't think, if the Oracle goes somewhat directly to the other side. So that's got potential to get some damage as well. The Adepts make it in. Now we're going to be forcing a recall. So actually, there's going to be Stalkers here if they chase the Adepts. So there might still be a chance for the Oracle. And as the Stalkers leave to the right side, the Oracle comes in from the left. And MaNa's going to get a whole chunk of probes. The Adepts are doing fantastic. The Oracle puts in the work, kills. And what a combination from MaNa. The Oracle even surviving to stasis ward further down the line, and that's frustrating because the last thing you want right now is GunGfu is any requirement to leave even more units at home because your plan's already been completely scrapped from what it was, and now it's even worse, man. What a awful combo. And this was just the Adept killing off the battery to get into the front as well, right? Like, he did fall initially, just the Adepts kept on scrapping, and then they got in.
I honestly cannot imagine a way that this could have gone better for MaNa and worse for GunGFuBanDa. This is really, really tough because this has also bought MaNa so much time back at home that now he's added on a Phoenix so he can lift up the Immortal of his opponent. He's got his own robotics facility and is tied up on the Immortal count. I mean, there's an Observer coming out here for GunGFuBanDa, not like even another Immortal. So MaNa is not even going to be lacking in terms of Immortal count. He's only sitting down 1 warp gate, but he has a better economy to actually utilize his 2 warp gates, as opposed to GunGFuBanDa, who after losing 10 workers, I'm actually not even sure if he's going to be able to consistently warp in off of all 3.
Yeah, I mean, he is slowly rebuilding that work account, but it's obviously been investment back into those probes, so it's definitely been slower. You know, throughout this, he's definitely missed warp-ins, and, well, now he's also supply blocked as well. I mean, you said it, right? Like, he's got an equal Immortal count here. It's actually taking his Immortal across the map, which is arguably going to complicate things for MaNa, but it could also put a lot of pressure on GunGfu that he's not ready to deal with. And also, you can see MaNa's got the Phoenix, obviously help him out over here as well. So I don't hate that MaNa's going across. What I do hate is... okay, I thought the Prism was turning around. It's the Oracle that's turning around. Because GunGfu's going to maybe catch a couple of units. We'll finish off that gateway. Like I say, MaNa's bound to do some good damage on the other side, though.
Yeah, and MaNa still has some force fields available to try and delay things to make sure that even if he has a slightly smaller army supply, he still is going to be able to just try and prevent GunGFuBanDa from moving on forward. Recall is forced out. I think with that recall, surely GunGFuBanDa feels like he just has to abandon this plan, right? Like, surely if he wants to do anything, he has to either start transitioning out tech-wise or try and turn this into a contain to just go for a natural, right? It has to be one of the two.
It is. You know, it's 1 base versus 1 base. So it's not like MaNa's like mining an extra base and GunGfu has to kill him right now. I think MaNa's ahead. He's got a higher work account. He's got a little bit more army supply. MaNa has leads, but GunGFuBanDa has... Oh, he's going to catch the Prism! MaNa is going to lose his Prism and his Immortal. This was so unnecessary. He knew the army was somewhere around here. That was a very, very lazy move with the Prism, and that maybe gives GunGfu a chance, because now... Well, I mean, MaNa still has 2 Immortals, and he's building a 3rd. I just feel like that's going to at least take some of the pressure off him, and maybe he does get down here to build this Nexus more easily. Probe right now is not going to be able to build it because of the stasis, but he needs to be careful. Don't get trapped in position, because now you can't build it for even longer because the probe blocks it. Yeah. I mean, even though the Prism went down, MaNa's still in a pretty good spot, huh?
Yeah, I think especially it's the addition of the fact that he has the 2 Phoenix here. I think if he ever even just decides he wants to add on like a 3rd Phoenix, I don't even mind adding 1 additional Phoenix just so he can do the little run bys and one-shot workers through the shield battery. I feel like even that will just be annoying, right? It just, every single time GunGFuBanDa wants to try and be offensive or aggressive out on the map, it just forces them even more all in. But for now, hey, 2 Phoenix can lift up the Immortal. It can chip away at the Warp Prism without having to use any additional micro and stuff. I still like MaNa's chances over here, especially if that Nexus finishes up and he can shield battery overcharge.
Yeah, we're getting very close to that. The only maybe problem is the fact the battery is quite far forward, so it's not too bad to target. Maybe even MaNa could take a step forward with his units and just be ready to greet things, rather than the first thing that gets hit is the battery and then it goes down super quickly and you lose that defensive addition. Otherwise, I don't see you breaking this. You're up against 3 Immortals. There is a Prism there for micro, and there's the 2 Phoenix of MaNa, so you can lift up one of the Immortals as well. And he even says, yeah, I can actually come forward and fight you a little bit. Yeah, loses a couple of shields and barriers. He's actually going to lift up his Prism and go across the map. MaNa, oh god. You know, I love it apart from what we saw happen before, so let's just not repeat history.
High risk, high reward situation over here. Like, those 2 Immortals could literally just put GunGFuBanDa into the straight up all in, I have to attack into you position. But it also could just actually throw away a bit of MaNa's lead and could potentially lead to his own demise over here, especially as Blink finishes line up, and GunGFuBanDa is probably going to feel like he wants to commit a little bit further in. And Blink with the Stalkers could actually even try and go for the snipe off on the Prism.
Yeah, it really should. Even a couple of Zealots getting warped in here is a pretty big deal just to tank for a little while. I mean, the Prism goes down. These Immortals are obviously fully committed. The Zealots chasing them down. He is just targeting down probes, which is neat and all, but... I mean, was this worth it? We're going to recall? Okay. At the same time, we do start to push around over at the front as well. 7 probes going down and a little lag spike as well. Hopefully nothing too major, as we just see.
Yeah.
this game settling, and GunGFu is just going to back it up in the end.
Yeah. And thankfully, a little lag spike happens after all of the little trades and stuff and skirmishes happen over there. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, it still ends up working out pretty well for Monterey, because now he has a pretty significant worker lead, even after GunGFuBanDa did grab a natural and stuff. And the War Prism, if that's the only thing that goes down there, then it ends up being pretty okay, right? You can remake that. I think the biggest loss there is not even so much the resources, it's just literally the build time on the Robo. But behind this, MaNa is also really just focusing on investing into Twilight Council, get up his own blink, getting a +1 weapons. So he can just kind of continue to play a bit of a macro game, get into his groove with all these upgrades and stuff. And after all of them finish up, like, he should just theoretically have a bigger army to go attack with.
Yeah, I think so, as we get that Robo Bay and Robo Facility number 2 coming up here from GunGFuBanDa. He wants to just see, further tech at this point. He wants to see the chance to kind of get into disruptors and everything, so I don't hate it. Obviously, GunGFu also has blink versus no blink. Like, his tech is good. It's economy-wise a bit down. It's a very playable position. I mean, MaNa taking a third already is kind of wild when you consider the fact that GunGFu has the mobility of the blink. Maybe GunGFu could have been faster to take that third even.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. GunGFuBanDa should have had map control. Even if MaNa had the scarier army, it's very difficult for him to move out. So I think I totally agree with you on that regard. The Hallucinated War Prism is a cute move, maybe going to scare MaNa and just force him back. Hallucinated Phoenix encounters the Hallucinated War Prism, so neither one of them know the other one's hallucinated. But, well, I guess actually the War Prism knows that it's hallucinated, but it is going to move in over here, and MaNa is not going to be deterred. In fact, he is going for the big attack now, as his blink is nearing completion, and +1 weapons also finishing up for him. But actually, GunGFuBanDa is going to have his own +1, so maybe it's okay.
GunGFu already just abandoned the third base. He cancelled the battery that is building there. MaNa, do you need to go further than this? I mean, now you're attacking into a natural that's defended. Your own third base is coming up. I do appreciate that, yes, you've obviously, maybe worried about the tech of your opponent getting better, but you're also about to attack into that tech, so let's see if he actually wants to commit or not. He does have 5 Immortals. That's terrifying, but so is one Disruptor. Still a pretty good shot. It hits an Immortal, and he is doing damage on the other side as well as the Adepts go to work. 11 probes haven't gone down already.
Yeah, all from just those 2 Adepts. Those 2 Adepts did all of that damage, with I think one of the Adepts even shading on over to the third base and being able to just be annoying even if the shield battery's over there. That did an absurd amount of damage. It actually evened up the worker count after all of that.
Yeah, MaNa still has the base lead at least, so he should be able to resaturate more easily. MaNa, realizing his opponent's playing Disruptors, is now looking to take advantage of that with more Phoenix. Hey, he already has Phoenix, right? So it's not the, craziest thing to expect him to build more of them. And they usually are a good counter to Disruptors, but only if you can actually get the lifts off. I thought there might have been a lift up there. There was on the Immortal. You lost one, though. Phoenix lifting up just whatever he can as this becomes a much larger fight. There's actually going to be Immortals hitting away at Zealots rather than Stalkers. GunGFuBanDa absolutely decimates this fight. MaNa gets caught so off guard. It was such a scrappy fight. He wasn't ready for this. He thought he was getting a free Disruptor, but GunGFu jumped on the opportunity to make that fight his own.
Yeah, MaNa making some big missed micro plays over there, especially I think he was anticipating that the Disruptor would fire the shot immediately. So the first Phoenix ran in, tried to lift up the Disruptor, but the shot hadn't actually gone off, so nothing actually got canceled over there. Now we see the big blink forward over here from GunGFuBanDa. There's no War Prism for MaNa to do extra micro with. There's no shield battery anymore for him to heal up with. It's still trying to finish. Probes being pulled off the line, but MaNa can't afford to lose these probes, and even with them, it's not enough to hold. GunGFuBanDa has turned this game completely on its head.
Yeah, third base going down is a no-no. You just can't let that happen. Your opponent's building a third at this point. You just lost a ton of probes as well. MaNa had this game, like, in my eyes, such under control.
Yeah.
Losing the Prism was a bit of a shame initially. I feel like, honestly, taking the 2 Immortals across the map was so unnecessary. Because at that point, he had enough to just come forward and kind of fight GunGFu at the front, at least force him back, and then take more of a lead himself. Just feels like he kind of played it in such a weird way, because then losing his Prism then kind of took away from what could have been a stronger push sooner. And then GunGFu's gone away with getting into Disruptors and everything. So obviously a lot of it comes down to that big fight in the middle of the map. That was where GunGFu just really won out and put MaNa into a very tough spot. And yeah, this is GunGFu's series now. MaNa going 1 and 2 is going to have to fight his way back. Man, I know MaNa as well, in one of the previous DreamHack regionals was very down on himself because he was constantly going 1-0 up in the series, and I think 5 series in a row or something. He was 1-0 up, and then he lost. Maybe it wasn't 5 series, but it was like
Yeah.
4 series. Then in the end, he like brought it back and went 4-4 in the group or 3-4 in the group and somehow made it through or something. But he's definitely had issues with being kind of like in the lead of a series. And when you split this series into parts as well, it's like game 1, super convincing from MaNa. Game 2, he tries something weird. It didn't go so great. It's like, whatever. And then game 3, it's like, he was kind of in control, but then he's just kind of let it slip away. If you ask me who the stronger player was, I would say maybe still MaNa overall. Like, GunGFuBanDa's won this off of it being scrappy and off of a couple of weird decisions from MaNa. I feel like MaNa's almost played himself more than GunGFuBanDa's played him, if that makes sense.
No, I feel like I think you put it really well much earlier on, where it felt like there were decisions that are like things that MaNa was doing where it was like the high risk, high reward. It can just moves that can just straight up end the game. But he already had an advantage, and it was kind of like an unnecessary risk for him to take. And so that gave GunGFuBanDa the opportunity to turn the game around. And there it is.